clouds, but Kingdra does manage to get its substitute out.
Part of how you fight it between, often we see players with Tyranitar just try to switch in Tyranitar, or players with Abomasnow just try to switch it in and use a Sandstream or Snow Warning to turn off the rain. But you can also just use the moves that have the same effect, Sunny Day, Sandstorm, and Hail, and we see Sunny Day here.
And Kingdra does not want to be at risk of any damage now that its rain is gone. Goes for the Protect behind the substitute. Latias goes for the Dragon Pulse on the Politoed instead. A great move there from Devon. Going to deal some damage to that Politoed, who's using the Skull onto that Scrafty. Usually a good choice, but in the Sun, that power is weakened as a Water-type attack deals almost nothing to that Scrafty. Fires back on the front, right onto that Politoed. Going to deal a lot of damage. Politoed barely survives there.
Devon's starting off the battle hot like his son. He makes a great play to turn off the rain in the first turn, and then predicts Kingdra protecting and double targets the Politoed there to get a big lead.
Yeah, and Politoed does have to retreat, or else it won't be able to set that rain again. Paul sends out his own Scrafty, going to go up against Devon's own Scrafty and Latias. Of course, Paul's Scrafty showing its Intimidate, going to lower the attack of Devon's team, including that Scrafty and Latias. Of course, Latias as a special attacker normally isn't going to be too worried about that, but it will be bad news for his Scrafty. Kingdra from behind the substitute finally decides to come out of its shell and begin attacking. Gets the Draco Meteor onto that Latias, who uses the Habenberry to weaken the damage of that Dragon-type Draco Meteor. Usually super effective, still super effective, but because of that berry, not going to get the KO. Kingdra now loses some of its special attack for its troubles, while Latias is going to be able to use that Dragon Pulse to break the sub.
Another great turn there. The Bondberry, an item we often see on Latias. Like I mentioned before, Latios is the more offensive brother. It does more of the damage, whereas Latias tends to do support sets with moves like Sunny Day, and in order to get those moves off, you've got to survive. Bond helps you do that.
And now that the substitute is down, Scrafty is free to crunch away at that Kingdra, taking a bite out of that, but not a large bite. Does manage, thanks to that Intimidate, Paul does manage to lower the damage output there. But now we have a situation where Kingdra, usually pretty powerful, but now with its weakened special attack, not a whole big threat. Latias still a little bit scared, goes out for the Gyarados, who is going to be able to use its own Intimidate onto Paul's Scrafty. Going to lower the attack there. Kingdra not too worried about that, as we mentioned before, as a special attacker. But Scrafty on both sides now are at weakened attacks. Kingdra does think that it is the target of all of the attacks this turn, goes for the Protect, while Paul's Scrafty uses the Crunch on the incoming Gyarados, hoping to hit that Latias, which part Psychic Attack would have been super effective, but gets the critical hit, still deals only about a half HP there on the Gyarados. And Devon, another great move, predicts the Protect, uses the Drain Punch on the Paul's Scrafty, whose Chople Berry is going to weaken the damage for that.
Kind of expected him to keep nibbling away on that Kingdra's health bar, but once again predicts the Protect and hits the other target. Playing really, really well so far. Interesting to see how bulky that Gyarados is too. But even with the crit, only a little less than half of Gyarados' health was taken away.
Yeah, definitely a very bulky Gyarados. Clearly decided to train it for its defenses. Paul, of course, wants to get that weakened Kingdra out as soon as possible, switches it out for his own Thunderous, that electric type going to immediately scare that Gyarados, whose water flying type is going to be 4 times weak to it. The Waterfall comes out and is going to hit that Scrafty, but very little damage again. While Paul's Scrafty goes for the Drain Punch onto Devon's, who says, great minds think alike, I have a Chople Berry too, you're not going to be dealing a lot of damage to me either. If I don't get to, you don't get to. Peels off a little bit of that chip damage, while Devon's Scrafty goes again for the Drain Punch. Now that the Chople Berry has been used, going to deal a lot more damage, but still, thanks to that Intimidate, not quite enough.
Still, Devon keeps doing damage. It's 3 Pokemon on Paul's side now that are lowered health. Thunderous is the only healthy member of his team. Only thing about that turn that Devon probably didn't love is that he reduced the damage of his own Waterfall with the last turn of Sunny Day there. But the skies have cleared and it's just kind of normal outside now. Nothing too special.
And there goes Paul's Scrafty back out for the Politoed. Isn't okay with there being no weather effects on the field. Has to summon that rain back with its drizzle. as it comes out on the field. It will now boost Gyarados and Waterfall, but more importantly will boost Politoed and Kingdra's attack, and also Kingdra's speed. Scrafty on Devon's side does not want to be taking damage from any of those things I just mentioned. Goes ahead and protects itself, while Thundurus uses the Thunderbolt onto the Gyarados. That electric type attack going to do a lot of damage to Gyarados, and it's going to be more than enough to get the KO there. And our first Pokemon goes down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of surprising, right? Paul's been behind all game, but he's able to get the first knockout there. Electric type Pokemon, usually really good on rain teams like Paul's. Other water type Pokemon are pretty problematic for water types like Kingdra and Politoed to get rid of. So Thundurus helping out his friends there.
And of course, even though electric types are good on rain teams, they're also very good against rain teams. And here comes Devon's own Raikou out on the field. Going to be able to deal a lot of damage to the Pokemon we've seen so far.
Yeah, electric type Pokemon are really difficult to play against as the rain team, but Raikou's a little scared. He's going to have to protect himself for a while.
Yeah, it's going to go ahead and protect itself, while Paul's Politoed also protects itself. Everyone playing very conservatively, very safe this match. This is the finals. No one wants to be caught off guard. Does manage to avoid the Thunder Wave, Raikou does, with that protect, while Scrafty's going to get a crunch onto the Thundurus. Going to deal some good damage, but again, the Intimidate is really weakening that Scrafty.
Yeah, Raikou's probably the threat in the field now. Poor Scrafty, not doing too much damage here, but still it's chipping away. But Raikou, it's electric type, has a great matchup with pretty much everything that Paul's chosen to use this game. So yeah, see that Thunder Wave there. Paul's trying to get under control.
Raikou was able to avoid that Thunder Wave the first time, but now is fully paralyzed. The same turn as that Thunder Wave is not going to get a chance to launch an attack on this turn. Scald comes out from Politoed, going after the Scrafty. Again, a little bit of damage. I was expecting a little bit more from that. Scrafty brings out the Drain Punch, is going to be enough to finish off that Politoed once and for all, though, it looks like, and heals off just a little bit.
Now, the game's going to get harder for Paul here. We're down to 3-3. It's a tie game in theory. Quite a bit more damage on Paul's side of the field than on Devon's. The paralysis on Raikou will help,
but the Moxie Scrafty. Moxie giving that Scrafty an attack boost, now sort of getting rid of that Intimidate debuff there. Back up to full strength, ready to keep fighting.
Yeah, Moxie is Scrafty. That's something we see a whole lot of. The Dream World gives Scrafty the Intimidate ability, which lets it be more of a supportive member of its team, and most people have chosen to go on that route. But not this Scrafty. This Scrafty's got Moxie. It's going to take out all the enemy's Pokemon on its own. It doesn't want to help other people. It's going to do it itself.
Well, Scrafty's not going to be doing any of those things this turn, as it protects itself with the Detect. Kingdra back on the field and looking scary. Fires off of Muddy Water. Scrafty, of course, protected itself, but Raikou, now paralyzed, not fast at all because of that, is going to be taking a lot of damage from that boosted Muddy Water there. Thundurus going for the Grass Knot onto the Raikou as well, is going to deal quite a bit of damage, bringing it to the red, the blinking red, while the Thunderbolt comes out onto the Kingdra. It's going to be good damage, more than enough to get the KO on that.
Not going to weaken there, but his job. You know, electric type Pokemon, the main thing he needs to try to do is get rid of those water types on the opposing team, and they've both fainted for this battle.
Yes, definitely good for Raikou. Did its job. Still, the Intimidate coming out from Paul's Scrafty. Going to Intimidate beats Moxie this time, it looks like. Now back to that weakened state, since Scrafty did not get the final blow on that one. So it looks like the weakened Scrafty, the paralyzed Raikou, now on the field up against this Thundurus and weakened Scrafty as well.
Now Paul's behind in the game here, 2-3, but now he's got a slow Pokemon. He's got one who's also nearly fainted, and momentum maybe a little bit more on his side, but he's got to make a play quick here to avoid falling behind and losing the first game of the series.
Definitely needs to make a play here, and it looks like they're both trainers trying to figure out exactly what that play will be. Thundurus doing a good job getting that paralysis off, really clutch there, making sure that Raikou at red health and paralyzed isn't going to be around to do a whole heck of a lot. Here comes that Grass Knot, will finish off the Raikou. Raikou goes down now on Devon's side. Well, Paul Scrafty is going to go for that super effective Drain Punch onto Devon's Scrafty. Does not get enough damage there, leaving Scrafty in the orange. He'll be able to heal off a little bit there. With that Drain Punch, returning some of the damage done back as health. Of course, Devon is just going to use Drain Punch right back. and deal, a good amount of damage there, quite a lot, and is going to heal off all of that. One of the advantages of being slower in this one.
Now, what a slugfest between these Scrafties. I think it's about the third time they've Drain Punched back and forth. Two bulky Pokemon. Most of the fighting Pokemon you see in VGC are more of Glass Cannon, they'll fire off a close combat, and pretty much that'll be the battle for them. But not these Scrafties. It's back and forth, trading blows.
Yeah, these Scrafties definitely just want to, wail away at each other, doing a great job of it, truly embodying the fighting type. Latias back on the field here. So it looks like it's going to be Scrafty and Latias versus Scrafty and Thundurus. Both Thundurus and Latias usually a bit more supportive, as we see Thundurus going for the Thunder Wave onto Latias. Really wants to get that Pokemon below, worried about the speed of that Pokemon there. And it looks like Latias is paralyzed, and fully paralyzed, is going to be completely unable to make a move this turn, and we saw how badly that went last time for Devon. Here comes the Drain Punch in from Paul Scrafty, and it's going to do just enough damage, gets the feint onto Devon Scrafty, and finally in the war of the Scrafties, Paul comes out on top.
Maybe Paul comes up out on top because of it as well. Some clutch play by Thundurus here. Twice he gets that Thunder Wave off on his threatening target, and twice he gets that fully paralysis. Turns the game around for him.
Yeah, and it looks like that paralysis there is going to be the deciding moment. The match is forfeited. Raikou, as we head into this game 2 of the best of 3, right now.
No need to wait, here it is.
No need to wait. It's the best. Now at the top of your screen is going to be Paul Schwa, and at the bottom is Devon Ingram. As you can see, both of these trainers eager and ready to begin. You see their leads coming out. Paul decides to go with that Scrafty and the Thundurus, giving the Intimidate off right off the bat, and that Thundurus, which is being a bit of a nuisance to Devon that entire first game. And Scrafty is back, and Raikou are back. So again, the slug match of the Scrafties, right from turn 1.
Yeah, perhaps we're learning something about the metagame here. Two sides, leading with an Electric type Legendary and a Scrafty, and we're looking at the matchup mostly between the two of these, but you can look at the rest of the tournament from that. Both of these players managed to get to the finals, so maybe some good players for good Pokemon rather for the audience to think about trying out here.
And of course, in this Scrafty v Scrafty matchup, well, Devon Scrafty does have the Moxie, which would give it more late game power. Right now, it is intimidated and has to retreat because of that attack drop there. Out comes Volcarona, a Pokemon I wasn't expecting to see go up against this rain team. But here we see the Fire Bug Moth out on the field while Raikou goes for the Protect. Does not want to be getting paralyzed by that Thundurus for sure. Scrafty goes for the Fake Out onto the Volcarona, previously Scrafty, which would get the flinch, but unfortunately does not have a chance to move, and the Thunder Wave goes into the Protect of Raikou.
Pretty confident play to bring Volcarona against the rain team. Not necessarily a bad decision. Bug Buzz would help him deal with several of the Pokemon on Paul's team, but team based around water Pokemon bringing a fire type.
Not only that, but bringing a fire type that's using Rage Powder to redirect attacks to it. Of course, this time it redirects the Thunder Wave away from that Raikou. Definitely wants to keep Raikou speedy and healthy, while Volcarona takes the paralysis for its buddy. Great team play there. And of course, Volcarona's not worried at all because its Long Berry will cure that paralysis right away, while Raikou gets to fire off a free Thunderbolt onto that Scrafty, which is going to do a lot of damage there. And gets the paralysis. So, despite Paul's best efforts, Devon's giving the paralysis, and Scrafty can't move this turn.
Big turn for Devon this time. We see why Volcarona is here. I mentioned before that Raikou is a Pokemon that was sort of popularized in Korean Nationals, and Volcarona is actually another one. The Rage Power Lumberry set was really big there. We see both these Pokemon playing in a pivotal role on Devon's team here. Volcarona, great with Rage Powder here, is a really good Pokemon. Scrafty with the Fighting and Dark type Pokemon, which are both resisted by Volcarona, and Rage Powder is able to attract both those attacks. Unless Scrafty has a coverage move like Stone Edge, it's not going to be able to do a whole lot to Volcarona.
And it looks like Thundurus still wants to keep getting that paralysis off. No Rage Powder this turn, no Protect from Raikou. Paralysis is able to fire off the Thunderbolt onto that Thundurus. doing some strong damage there thanks to Raiku's high special attack bit. While Volcarona uses its own attack, the fire type attack, possibly not something we would see if Politoed were out on the field. The Heat Wave hitting both Scrafty and Thundurus doing quite a bit of damage while Thundurus heals off a little bit of that with the Citrus Berry. And Scrafty does have that coverage move, Stone Edge, and does connect with the Volcarona. That rock type Stone Edge against the Fire Bug, it's like he's going to switch it pretty easily, and Volcarona fakes with the critical hit on top of that.
Probably didn't need that critical hit there. Lights out for Volcarona there.
Style.
We're talking about Volcarona's other weaknesses to water type Pokemon, but it's also weak to flying Pokemon such as Thundurus, so it's not too common to see a Thundurus that can actually use that flying type. And Scrafty, able to use rock moves like Stone Edge there and picks up a knockout there.
And here comes Devon, turning back to that Scrafty of his own. Now it doesn't have the Intimidate on, and there are a couple of weak Pokemon on the field. If it can finalize the KOs on those, that Moxie boost could become really important soon.
Yeah, Moxie's not an ability we see a whole lot of, but that's how you make the most of it. You've got to get those weakened Pokemon and let the Moxie Pokemon pick up the KOs so you get stronger and stronger and just start carrying through teams.
And it looks like Paul had the same idea, switches out his weakened Scrafty for that full health Metagross. Steel Psychic type, really great against the dark fighting of Scrafty there. The fake out onto Thundurus is going to mean that Thundurus flinches and cannot move. Raikou is not paralyzed and will be able to get the Thunderbolt back onto that Thundurus and then his own KO for the turn.
Another brilliant play by Devon. He's been lights out in this whole series. There we go. He predicts the switch, just ignores that slot, and gets the fake out so he doesn't have to worry about the faster Thundurus doing anything, and gets the knockout with Raikou.
And here it is, the Politoed out from Paul. A little bit of a, not as heavy rain as the last one, but still bringing that drizzle to help out that Metagross and Politoed's own water type attack.
Politoed's here to help out, but he's a little late. The fire Pokemon fainted already. We do see other things for Politoed though. Part of why Rain's a good archetype is that Politoed does more than just set the rain. And I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't try to use Scald to get a burn on Scrafty here.
Of course, Scrafty's not going to let that happen. Uses the Detect to protect itself from that Scald risk there. Raikou also using the Protect. Devon just sort of wants to scout out and see what's going on with Paul's team here. Politoed does go for the Scald onto Scrafty. Of course, that's into the Protect. Metagross going for the Zen Headbutt onto Raikou. Of course, also protected this turn. A little bit of a wash.
Not too much happening there. Paul gets some information, or Devon gets some information rather, so that could help him with his next move, but now Paul does get information as well, because he knows either of those Pokemon can protect this turn when they want to risk a 50% chance of failing.
And that Raikou is going to switch out for the Latias. The rain's on the field, better send out the Pokemon that can stop the rain. In comes the Scald again, knowing that the Scrafty cannot protect this turn. Will connect with the rain boost. Latias hasn't had a chance to get rid of that just yet. Is going to deal a good amount of damage to that Scrafty. Does not get the burn though. And Latias is going to be able to take that Zen Headbutt from Paul's Metagross quite well.
Yeah, smart play by Devon there. Assumes the same moves that he got out of the Protect and gets them, so not too much damage in the second.
Definitely, but Scrafty is going to go ahead. Took a little bit of damage from that Scald, but is going to heal off most of that with the Drain Punch, dealing a little bit of damage to that Poly guy.
Gets the most out of that double Protect. He's in a better situation now with Latias in the field, able to give some support, and we'll see it turn off the rain right here.
Yep, here comes the sunny day. It's going to weaken that Politoed's water type attacks, as well as if Volcarona were still around to make that Metagross feel a little bit less safe. But here comes the Scald from Politoed. Now that it's no longer getting the rain boost, it's going to deal significantly less damage, but still has a chance of burn. Doesn't get it this time. Meteor Mash in from the Metagross, a really powerful attack onto that Latias, is going to deal quite a bit more than the Zen Headbutt did. Bring it down to the orange and gets the attack boost. So Metagross now already scary, even scarier with that attack boost. Scrafty going to deal a little bit of damage with the Drain Punch and try to heal off some of that Scald damage as well.
And that attack boost is applying a lot of pressure here. And we talked about the idea of Scrafty getting a few knockouts and building up that Moxie. But Metagross doesn't even need the knockout to get its boost. It just fires off a Meteor Mash and now it's ready to go. Even just one level of attack from that Meteor Mash boost really increases the damage it does. And since it already had a pretty good matchup with most of Devon's Pokemon, he's going to have to find a way to deal with this quick.
Definitely. Metagross with an attack boost is very scary. Some trainers like to use things like Choice Band, which increases the attack on its own, Life Orb, which increases the attack, any sort of attack boosting item on that Metagross. Some gyms in particular are also very common. definitely a scary thing. And now Metagross gets that boost without having to use his items.
That's valuable too. Choice Band stops you from using Protect, so that makes it a little bit harder to play. But this Metagross still has all of its tricks, but you get the attack boost to go with it.
And Latias, now that it's turned off the rain, is going to go on the offensive. Gets a Psyshock onto Politoed, doing good damage there. In comes the Icy Wind. Very supportive Politoed here. Going to get the speed drop on both of these Pokemon. Deal super effective damage to Latias, but not quite enough to finally net that KO there. But Scrafty and Latias will both be a little bit slower for their troubles, making cleanup a little bit easier for that Metagross. Here comes the Metagross using that Meteor Mash once again, maybe hoping for another attack boost, but also going to deal a lot of damage to that Scrafty. You see that HP bar just fall so quickly, and it gets the KO. Scrafty takes that boosted Metagross, so scary.
Yeah, showing exactly why it's so scary right there. I don't know if it would have been able to get that knockout with that Meteor Mash otherwise, but it's strong now after it. And like I said, it'll be really tough to rein it in now.
Yeah, and out comes the Raikou, paralyzed Raikou. So even though it's at full health, and particularly potentially very scary to that Metagross, it's probably going to be very slow and unable to actually get off an attack before Metagross will finish. Icy Wind comes out, is going to hit both of those Pokemon, the Raikou and the Latias, and finally gets the KO on Latias, finishes that one off, deals a little bit of damage to Raikou and also drops its speed. So if it manages to survive this turn, it's not going anywhere fast. Here comes the Metagross, uses the Zen Headbutt, is going to connect with the Raikou. Can the Metagross with the attack boost finalize this? And the win for Paul. Down goes the HP. Oh, and Raikou barely survives but flinches and doesn't get a chance to move that turn.
Frustrating turn for Raikou there. Great move by Metagross there. He's got the Meteor Mash. Get carried away.
There goes the forfeit from Devon. And Paul Chua is your 2013 United States Video Game National Senior Champion.